You don't expect a hero to have 4 legs and a bark that wakes the dead. But that's exactly what happened on Sycamore Lane, a quiet little street where most folks left their doors unlocked and trusted their neighbors like family. The kind of place where nothing ever happens, until it does. The house looked normal enough, 2 stories, fresh paint, a tire swing out front. But inside, something was wrong. Nobody saw it. Not the teachers, not the neighbors, not even the social workers who'd stopped by once or twice. But Ranger, a retired K9, saw it. Or rather, he felt it. And when he started clawing at the foot of a child's bed like his life depended on it, no one was prepared for what they would find. Not even Officer Jenna Cole. Officer Jenna Cole wasn't new to chaos. After all, she'd spent 5 years in Atlanta's gang unit before transferring to this sleepy Oregon suburb for a slower pace, and maybe a little healing after her partner was shot in the line of duty. Ranger had been with her through all of it, a German shepherd with a titanium will and the kind of loyalty you don't train, you earn. Now semi-retired, Ranger wasn't technically on the force anymore. He was Jenna's dog now, her family. He still wore his vest proudly, still slept by the front door like it was a war zone, and still had that sixth sense that made him invaluable on patrol. That's what made the call strange. Noise complaints, the dispatcher had said. 3 this month, same house. Something about shouting late at night. Possible domestic disturbance. Address is 1475 Sycamore Lane. Jenna glanced over at Ranger in the passenger seat. His ears perked up as if he knew where they were headed. Jenna frowned. Let's check it out, partner. The house was neat. Too neat. Melissa Green, single mom, early 30s, polished and polite, answered the door in yoga pants and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She had the kind of overly sweet tone that made Jenna's cop radar twitch. Hi, officer. Oh, the neighbors must think we're monsters. Eli's been watching superhero cartoons again. He gets loud. Jenna gave a friendly smile but let her eyes do the scanning. Living room spotless, dishes done, a lemon candle burning. Too perfect. Too staged. Mind if I come in? She asked. Of course, Melissa said. But everything's fine, really. That's when Jenna saw him. Eli, 6 years old. Thin. Too quiet. He peeked out from behind the hallway wall, clutching a stuffed dinosaur, his eyes wide and blank, like a deer in headlights. Ranger's reaction was immediate. He tensed, sniffed the air, then slowly walked toward the hallway, stopping right in front of what Jenna assumed was Eli's bedroom. He growled, just once. Low, controlled, but enough to raise the hairs on Jenna's arms. I'm sorry. He usually doesn't do that, Jenna said, tugging gently at his leash. Melissa laughed a little too loud. Oh, dogs don't like this old carpet for some reason. But Jenna wasn't convinced. Back in the patrol car, Jenna turned to Ranger. That wasn't nothing, was it? She muttered, scratching behind his ears. You smelled something. Or someone. He licked her hand. She didn't file a report. Not yet. She had no cause, no bruises, no signs of abuse, no hard evidence. But that kid's eyes stuck with her. And so did Ranger's growl. That night, Jenna tossed and turned. At 3:17 a.m., she woke up in a cold sweat, dreaming of a kid crying under a bed while a voice whispered, No one will ever believe you. She didn't believe in premonitions, but she believed in gut instinct. And Rangers. 2 days later, Jenna showed up again. Melissa looked surprised, but not angry. More complaints? She asked, shifting her weight awkwardly. Just to follow up, Jenna replied. Wanted to check on Eli. The boy was coloring on the floor. He didn't look up. There was a fresh mark, small, purplish, peeking out beneath the sleeve of his t-shirt. Oh, that? Melissa waved it off. He slipped off the bunk bed. He's clumsy. Ranger pulled hard on the leash. He sniffed the hallway again, this time more urgently, and before Jenna could stop him, He darted into Eli's room and started pawing violently at the foot of the bed. Melissa shrieked, "Hey, call off your dog!" "I'm sorry!" Jenna grabbed Ranger by the collar, but he kept scratching, barking louder now. His nails scraped against the wooden bed frame like he was trying to dig through it. "There's nothing under there!" Melissa snapped. But Eli finally looked up, and this time his eyes weren't blank. They were begging.
Hey folks, if you're finding yourself on the edge of your seat already, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Heroes for Animals. We tell true and inspired stories of loyalty, bravery, and the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. Stories that might just restore your faith in the good guys.
Jenna left soon after, apologizing again. She didn't sleep that night. Something wasn't adding up. Ranger was trained to detect narcotics, explosives, even electronics, and he was acting like a bomb was buried in that bed frame. The next morning, she filed a request for background checks. No red flags. Melissa Green was squeaky clean. Too clean. A week went by. No more complaints. No noise. No screaming. But Jenna couldn't shake the image of Eli's eyes, and the bruises, and Ranger's unrelenting focus on that exact spot under the bed. Something was hidden there. Something no one wanted found. On Friday night, Jenna got the call. Melissa had filed a complaint against her. She claimed Ranger had lunged at her, and that Jenna had bullied her in front of her son. The department suspended her with pay, pending investigation. Jenna didn't yell, didn't argue, but she stared at Ranger in the dark that night and whispered, "She's hiding something, and you're the only one who knows where." Ranger just whined and rested his head on her lap. She made her decision the next morning. No badge, no vest, just her, a hoodie, and Ranger off-leash. They parked a block away from the house, waited until Melissa drove off. Then quietly, Jenna opened the back fence, slipped through the sliding glass door, which Melissa had left unlocked, and crept into the hallway. Ranger led the way, nose to the floor, tail stiff. He stopped at the bed, sniffed once, then started pawing ferociously at the same wooden panel. Jenna dropped to her knees, feeling around the bed frame. Click. There, a thin gap between the planks. She pried it open, and what she found inside changed everything. The compartment was small, but what was hidden inside wasn't. Jenna's fingers trembled as she pulled out the rectangular object wrapped tightly in black cloth. Ranger stood beside her, tense but quiet now, his job, at least in his eyes, done. She peeled back the cloth and found exactly what she feared. A small camera, rigged to a battery pack and connected to a micro SD card. The lens was angled upward, the kind of placement that wasn't meant to catch burglars or monitor sleepwalking. It was meant to record someone, something. Jenna's heart thudded against her ribs. She stared down at the device in her hands, every instinct screaming, this wasn't just weird, it was criminal. She pocketed the device and quietly left through the same back door she entered, Ranger close on her heels. No alarms, no cameras outside the house. Melissa had only hidden the one thing she didn't want anyone to see. And now Jenna had it. Back in her living room, Jenna placed the wrapped device on the table like it was radioactive. Ranger paced restlessly, ears twitching. He knew. Somehow, he always knew. Jenna hesitated. She could call it in, hand it over, let the department handle it. But she was on suspension, and any step she took right now would be seen as overreach. If she wasn't careful, she could lose her badge altogether. So instead, she sat down, pulled out her laptop, and inserted the SD card. She wasn't prepared for what she saw. The screen blinked. Blackness. Then static. Then a date, August 3rd, 2024. Then video. The angle was awkward, low. From the floor, looking up, a child's bed came into view. Eli's, unmistakably. Crayon drawings on the walls. The same stuffed dinosaur lying in the corner. Then came footsteps. Melissa, hair in a tight bun, smile gone, voice sharp. She was holding something. It looked like a belt. Jenna's throat closed as she watched the woman scream. No audio, but the body language was enough. She pulled Eli roughly out of bed. He resisted. She slapped him. Hard. Jenna had to pause the video. She covered her mouth, nausea crawling up her chest. Her hands clenched into fists. Ranger let out a soft whimper and rested his head against her knee. Jenna whispered, "You were right, buddy. You were right." She made 3 copies of the footage. One for the chief, one for CPS, and one locked away in her safe. Then she called Detective Harold Rayner, her old mentor. "You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you," she said. "Try me." Within an hour, they met at a local diner off Route 84. The kind of place with chipped mugs and sour coffee. But Harold liked it because the eggs are cheap and the booths don't talk. Jenna laid everything out. The complaint against her, the noise reports, Eli's bruises, Ranger's reaction, and finally, the footage. Harold didn't say a word until the video ended. Then he looked at her with something between pride and dread. "You're gonna catch hell for this," he said. "But you did the right thing. What happens next?" "We hit her with possession of unlawful surveillance equipment, child abuse, and anything else we can build. But we'll need to move fast. People like her, they sense when the walls are closing in." By sunset, officers in unmarked cars were parked down the street from Melissa's house. Jenna stayed behind. Officially, she wasn't cleared to be on scene. But she waited, watching the clock, watching the door, and then she saw it. Melissa walking out, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder, Eli trailing behind her. His hand held hers, but reluctantly, like he was hoping someone, anyone, would stop them. Jenna grabbed her phone. "She's trying to leave," she told Harold. "She's getting in her car now. Don't lose them." "I wasn't planning on it." Melissa's sedan pulled away from the curb, tires crunching gravel as she headed west. Jenna followed at a safe distance, Ranger panting quietly beside her in the back seat. "She knows," Jenna muttered. "She freaking knows." For the next 15 minutes, they weaved through back roads until Melissa pulled into a gas station just past the outskirts of town. That's when the unmarked units closed in. Melissa was handcuffed by the time Jenna pulled up. Eli sat frozen in the passenger seat, pale and silent. It was over, but not really. Back at the station, Melissa wouldn't say a word. She lawyered up immediately. Refused to give access to her laptop, her emails, even her phone. But it didn't matter. The video was enough. So was the hidden camera. And Eli, once in protective custody, finally began to speak. Bit by bit, whisper by whisper. He told them about the quiet game, how he had to stay silent whenever the camera was on, how the punishments started small, timeouts, no dinner, but escalated when he cried or screamed. He said he tried to tell his teacher once, but Melissa made him write a letter afterward. He wasn't allowed to bring his drawings home anymore. "She said nobody would believe me," he said. But the dog knew. Ranger became a local legend within days. People donated chew toys, treats, and collars. One woman baked him a turkey loaf with his name carved in mashed potatoes. But for Jenna, the praise felt hollow. Because beneath the victory was a bigger question. How many other homes looked perfect from the outside? How many kids were playing the quiet game with no dog to save them? Jenna stood outside Eli's foster home a week later, a small plush dinosaur in her hand, the same one he clutched when they first met. The boy opened the door slowly, then grinned. "Ranger!" he squealed as the dog bounded in, tail wagging like crazy. Jenna stayed back. Eli sat on the floor, hugging Ranger like he was life itself. He whispered something into the dog's ear. Ranger just licked his cheek and laid beside him, protective and calm. That night, Jenna sat on her porch with a cup of lukewarm tea, watching Ranger gnaw on his new bone. "You saved that kid," she said. "Not me, you." Ranger paused, then gently placed the bone at her feet, as if to say, "You saved us both." There's something eerie about quiet towns after the storm. Everyone acts like it's over, like the arrest fixed everything. But Officer Jenna Cole knew better. Child Protective Services had Eli now in a temporary foster home with a kind elderly couple who baked cookies and kept a nightlight on. He was eating, sleeping, speaking in full sentences. But that didn't mean the damage was undone, and it didn't mean the story was over. Jenna had learned the hard way that abuse was rarely isolated. It spread like mold, through walls, through systems, through secrets. And Melissa Green's secrets? They were just starting to crack open. Jenna stood in front of the evidence board she'd built in her garage, sipping black coffee and staring at a copy of Melissa's driver's license. Green was too clean. There were no high school records, no college transcripts. Her social media accounts had been created just 4 years earlier. And even then, they were almost empty. Just posed photos of Eli at pumpkin patches and Christmas trees, always smiling, but never with anyone else. No relatives, no friends tagged, not even a single birthday post. It felt curated, controlled, like an image someone wanted you to believe. Ranger lay at her feet, tail thumping softly every time she murmured something out loud, like he was following the case with her. "What are you hiding, Melissa?" she muttered. "And who are you hiding from?" Jenna wasn't technically back on duty yet. Her official hearing was still 2 days away. But Harold Rayner, her mentor and unofficial shield, called her that afternoon with a low voice and a message that changed everything. "She's not who she says she is," he said. Jenna sat up straight on her porch swing. "Melissa? Name's fake. Real name's Karen Bishop. She changed it about 5 years ago, legally through the courts in Nevada." "Why?" "That's the fun part. The records were sealed, but I pulled a few strings with an old buddy at the DMV. Turns out she was listed as a person of interest in a missing child case out of Florida back in 2016. Jenna's stomach dropped. A child went missing under her care? Her own nephew, 3 years old. She was babysitting. Claimed he wandered off while she was in the kitchen. Kid was never found. Charges were never filed, but people talked. Jesus. Yeah, thought you'd want to know. Jenna didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she drove out to the station. Her suspension hadn't officially lifted, but that didn't stop her from walking through the doors and straight to the back where Harold was waiting with a stack of files. He dropped them on the table between them. "Read fast. CPS and the feds are getting involved now." The file showed everything. Karen Bishop, a.k.a. Melissa Green, had a long trail of quiet escapes. Different towns, short-term leases, fast exits. No criminal convictions, but always a pattern. A young child, a complaint, a sudden move. She had worked as a nanny in 3 different states. Each job ended without a trace. And every time, the kids were either withdrawn from school, homeschooled, or moved away. Jenna felt sick. "She's not just an abuser," she whispered. "She's been doing this for years." Harold nodded grimly. "We think she may have been connected to a private group that exchanged footage online. Could explain the camera." "What kind of group?" "The kind that stays underground. Password-protected forums. Cryptocurrency trails. We're trying to trace where the SD card was sending data. If we can prove she uploaded any of it, she's going away for life. If we're lucky." Jenna couldn't stop picturing Eli. His tiny hands clutched to Ranger's fur. His quiet, shaky voice. The way he looked over his shoulder every time someone entered a room. She had to do more. So that night, she returned to Melissa's house, now under police lockdown, and walked through the front door with a new warrant and a whole team behind her. She hadn't brought Ranger, but she could still feel him with her. The place was too clean. Even with drawers open and furniture tossed, something felt untouched. She went straight to Eli's room. The bed was gone now, seized as evidence. The drawings on the wall had been carefully peeled away and tagged for documentation. She crouched down to the carpet and ran her hand over it. That's when she noticed something strange. A square imprint at the carpet, perfectly symmetrical, right under where the bed used to be. She pulled a flashlight and examined the floorboards. There, almost invisible, a hairline crack in the wood.
"Hey, get me a crowbar!"
She called out. It took 2 minutes to pry open. What they found underneath made the room go silent. A metal safe bolted into the subfloor. The tech team worked fast, bypassing the simple digital lock. Inside were 4 more SD cards, a burner phone, and a handwritten list of usernames and passwords. "Bingo," someone muttered. But Jenna couldn't look away from the stack of child drawings tucked beneath the tech. Eli's drawings. All of them had been traced over, manipulated. His original happy scenes turned into distorted images of fear, shadow figures, and locked doors. Jenna's hand trembled as she picked one up. It was a stick-figure dog, labeled Huanxixi Ranger. Back at the precinct, the tech team decrypted the phone first. Messages, all encrypted, showed transactions, money exchanged through Bitcoin, with vague descriptions like package received and Angel, age 6. Jenna's blood ran cold. The usernames on the list traced back to a hidden server hosted outside the U.S., a dark web child exploitation ring, exactly what she'd feared. Melissa wasn't just abusing Eli. She had been documenting him, distributing him, selling him. And now there was proof. By the end of the week, Melissa faced 9 new charges, including possession and distribution of exploitative material, conspiracy to traffic minors, and aggravated child abuse. And thanks to the decrypted server info, 3 other suspects across the country were arrested. Jenna stared at the list of names like it was a horror script. But she didn't feel triumph, only fire. She visited Eli that Sunday. The foster parents had built him a small sandbox in the backyard. He was digging a hole with a plastic shovel, Ranger sitting loyally at his side like a soldier guarding a king. Jenna approached slowly. Eli turned and smiled, a little more freely this time. "I made Ranger a house," he said, pointing to the mound of sand beside him. Jenna knelt down. "I bet he loves it." Eli nodded, then whispered, "He helped me be brave." "You were already brave," Jenna said softly. "He just helped you remember." That night, Jenna stood on her porch again. The stars were out. The sky was peaceful, but her soul wasn't. She knew there were more Melissas out there, more children hiding in plain sight, and more silent cries only dogs like Ranger could hear. Jenna hadn't seen Eli smile like that in weeks. He was chasing Ranger across the backyard of his new foster home, letting out belly laughs so loud, even the neighbor's dog barked in response. The old shepherd kept looking back as if checking, "You okay, kid?" "I'm still here." Jenna watched from the porch swing, coffee in hand, eyes soft. Moments like this were rare. And they never lasted long in her line of work. Sure enough, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. Didn't care. Not today. But the second buzz came 30 seconds later. Then a text. Urgent. 6-year-old girl missing in Lakeport. Circumstances eerily familiar. Call me, Rainer. Jenna's stomach tightened. The world slowed. Ranger, still in mid-chase, stopped, turned his head toward her like he already knew. "Not again," Jenna whispered. By the time she got to the Lakeport precinct, her badge had been reinstated. But it wasn't authority she carried. It was fire. Rainer met her in the hallway, folder already in hand. "Name's Chloe Montgomery. Went missing yesterday afternoon. Last seen at her daycare around 3:40 p.m. Father showed up for pickup. Staff said she was already gone. No pickup logs, no witnesses. Cameras were mysteriously wiped." Jenna blinked. "Wiped?" "Yup. Full system went dark from 2:30 to 4:15. Power surge, they said." He opened the folder. Chloe's school photo stared back. Big hazel eyes, cheeks too round to belong in a file labeled Missing. Jenna took a breath. "You said it felt familiar." Rainer nodded grimly. "That's not all. The daycare got an anonymous donation last year, 20 grand, for security upgrades. Turns out, the check was from a now-defunct LLC in Nevada." Jenna's pulse spiked. "Wait, Melissa, Karen Bishop, was living in Nevada before she came here." "Exactly." "You think she's involved again?" "No. She's in a state facility, No chance she got out. But someone she worked with, someone from that ring, could be picking up where she left off. They visited the daycare together that afternoon. It was a bright, overly cheerful place, hand-painted murals of clouds and smiling suns. But under the fluorescent lights and finger paint was tension. The director, a nervous woman in her 50s, kept wringing her hands. "We've never had anything like this happen," she said. "We've always run background checks, required ID for pickups. Chloe was a happy girl. No signs of anything." Jenna nodded, half listening. Her focus was on Ranger. He sniffed around the front door, then moved to the cubby area, where children left backpacks and lunchboxes. And then, suddenly, he stopped at the art supply shelf, sniffed, growled. Jenna knelt down beside him. "What is it, boy?" He scratched lightly at the floor, then looked up at her. She lifted the shelf slightly and saw it. A small wireless camera tucked into the corner behind a stack of construction paper. Raynor cursed under his breath. Jenna carefully removed it, bagging it in evidence. Hidden, just like the last one. The director paled. "Oh my God! Where's your router located?" Jenna asked. The office, I think." They followed her inside. Ranger led the way. And just like that, he barked. Not loud, just one short, commanding bark. He sat beside a filing cabinet. Jenna opened the drawer. There, nestled beneath a pile of birthday forms and parent newsletters, was a USB drive with no label. The tech guys at the precinct got to work immediately. By nightfall, Jenna and Raynor were sitting in the viewing room, watching footage from a camera inside the daycare's art corner. The date was from 3 days ago. There was Chloe, painting with another girl, smiling. Then a figure entered frame, blurred, with a hoodie and a mask. The girls looked up, confused. The man crouched and handed something to Chloe. "A lollipop? A toy?" She followed him willingly. Raynor leaned in. "That's not some random grab. That's rehearsed, groomed." Jenna didn't speak, because what caught her attention wasn't the man. It was the voice coming from the feed, the tiniest snippet, barely audible, but hauntingly familiar. She replayed it. Again, again, and then it hit her. "Raynor," she said, voice tight. "That's Melissa's voice." They played the clip for voice-matching software. It pinged 87% certainty. Raynor shook his head. "She's locked up, Jenna. No phone, no calls, no visitors besides her lawyer." Jenna stared at the screen. What if that's not her, but someone copying her? He frowned. Copying how? Voice modulation, sampling, technology's there, especially in dark web circles. Someone using her voice would have to know her, or be her partner. Raynor's face darkened. "You think she didn't act alone?" "I think she never did." Back at the garage, Jenna stared at the new photos of Chloe's empty room. Unmade bed, stuffed bunny on the floor. Same silence she'd seen in Eli's. Same story, different ending, unless they stopped it. Ranger rested his head against her leg, sensing her tension. She whispered, "Find her, buddy, like you found Eli." He didn't move, just closed his eyes, calm, trusting, but ready. The next day brought a break. One of the usernames from Melissa's decrypted file matched an IP address that had pinged near Lakeport, just 1 day before Chloe disappeared. The address traced to a cabin deep in the woods, 20 miles out. Abandoned, according to county records, they mobilized immediately. 3 patrol units, 1 SWAT van, and Jenna, with Ranger in the lead. The sun was just starting to set when they reached the gravel driveway. The cabin was old, boards falling off the porch, vines swallowing the sides. But the chimney was smoking. Raynor whispered, "Someone's here." They moved in silence, weapons drawn. Jenna unlatched Ranger's vest. "Find her," she whispered. He took off like a rocket. They kicked the door in 10 seconds later. Inside, the place was cluttered, dark, thick with the smell of mildew and something sourer. Ranger barked once, from upstairs. Jenna ran. She found him at a locked door, whining, scratching. She didn't wait for backup. Kicked it open. There, in the far corner, was Chloe, wrapped in a blanket, shaking, but alive. She blinked at the sudden light. Ranger crawled toward her gently. She didn't flinch. She smiled. And that's when Jenna cried. Outside, the officers cuffed a man in his early 40s, disheveled, silent. He didn't resist. Inside his truck, they found wigs, masks, USB drives, fake IDs, and a printed list of names including Eli and Chloe. A pattern, a network, a predator trying to finish what Melissa had started. But not on Ranger's watch. That night, Jenna sat beside Chloe at the hospital. The girl clutched Ranger like a teddy bear, refusing to let go. "He barked at the bad guy," she whispered. Jenna smiled. "He's good at that. Can I keep him?" Jenna chuckled. "He's got a full-time job, but he says you're his favorite sidekick." Chloe beamed. "And Ranger?" He just wagged his tail. The storm that followed Chloe Montgomery's rescue wasn't just local. Within 24 hours, the FBI took over the case. News outlets swarmed Lakeport like buzzards. Talk shows began asking hard questions about child safety in daycares. Jenna's name was left out of the headlines by design. But the brave K-9 made every front page. Ranger became a hero again. But Jenna couldn't celebrate, not yet. Because even as the community began to breathe again, she was digging into something that had haunted her for days, something older, buried deeper than anyone realized. Melissa Green wasn't Melissa. They all knew that by now. But who she was before she became Karen Bishop, before the name changes and sealed files, that piece had been missing. Until now, Detective Rayner handed her a flash drive in the precinct parking lot. "It wasn't easy," he said. "I had to go through 2 burned-out servers and an archivist in Tallahassee who owed me a favor." Jenna plugged the drive into her laptop the minute she got home. Inside was a single folder. Margaret E. Langston, 2001, 2005. Not Karen, not Melissa, Margaret. The documents were grainy scans of school records, juvenile court appearances, and psychiatric evaluations. Margaret Langston had grown up in a trailer park in Central Florida. Mom was hooked on meth. Dad had walked out before she could speak in full sentences. She'd bounced through foster homes by the time she was 8. At 10, she stopped talking. At 12, she started hurting other kids, mostly younger girls. She blamed them for something, though it was never clear what. Pushed one down the stairs, cut another's hair off in the middle of the night, tried to suffocate a foster sister with a pillow. 3 homes expelled her. The 4th tried to get her help. That's where the psychiatric report came in. Jenna read the intake summary 3 times. Margaret demonstrates early indicators of narcissistic and antisocial behavior, marked by manipulation, deception, and emotional detachment. Displays a fascination with control, particularly over younger children. No remorse observed. Refers to her actions as games. Games, the same word Eli had used. She said it was a game. Jenna closed the file and stared out her kitchen window. Ranger lay on the porch, head between his paws, watching birds hop along the fence line. There was no version of this story that ended clean. Melissa, Margaret, wasn't just a broken woman. She was built from trauma, cruelty, and silence. And somewhere along the way, she decided to become the very monster that raised her. The next morning, Jenna drove 2 hours south to the Riverside Psychiatric Center, where Margaret had spent nearly a year at age 13 before being rehabilitated and placed in transitional housing. The facility was gray, institutional, and smelled faintly of Lysol and thyme. She met with Dr. Roberta Gaines, now retired, but still living nearby. "I wasn't sure anyone would ever come asking about her," Dr. Gaines said, pouring tea into mismatched mugs. "Most just wanted to forget she was ever here." Jenna accepted the cup. "I don't want to forget. I want to understand." The older woman sighed, her hands trembling slightly as she lifted her own drink. "You're not going to like what you hear." "I already don't." Margaret had been assigned to Dr. Gaines after she attacked a 4-year-old boy with a shoelace in her second foster home. There was no remorse, no fear, the doctor said. Just frustration that she got caught. What did she say about the boy? She called him loud, said he needed to learn silence. Jenna felt her chest tighten. The quiet game. It had roots. She used to draw pictures, Dr. Gaines added. Stick figures, rooms without windows, always with a single word written in crayon beneath, control. Do you still have them? I saved 2. Dr. Gaines reached into a file cabinet and handed over 2 faded sketches. One showed a stick figure girl standing over a smaller figure lying in bed. The other? A dog, growling at a door. Jenna stared at the second one. That's Ranger. She drew that in 2004, the doctor said softly. No, Jenna said. She drew what he represents. Back in her car, Jenna couldn't shake the image. A child who became an abuser. A predator who buried her past under new names, new cities. But maybe the most chilling part wasn't what Margaret did. It was what she planned. Each move, each identity, wasn't random. They were calculated. Each child she targeted looked the same. Age 5 to 7. Small frame, emotionally withdrawn. Easy to isolate. Easy to control. What if the network she was tied to hadn't ended with her? What if she was training others? That evening, Jenna brought Ranger into the station. The whole squad had unofficially adopted him at this point, feeding him jerky strips, calling him Detective Dog, even giving him his own blanket in the break room. But Jenna wasn't here for laughs. She laid out the evidence board again, added a new name at the top. Margaret Langston, a.k.a. Karen Bishop, a.k.a. Melissa Green. Below it, timelines, victim profiles, map pins. Then she pinned Chloe Montgomery's rescue photo beside Eli's and drew a third line with a question mark. Because if Margaret had been operating for 20 years and they'd only found 2 victims so far, who else had they missed? Raynor walked in around 9 p.m., 2 coffees in hand. You're still here? Of course. He handed her a cup. Thought you'd want to see this. Got it from a federal case that just closed in Texas. Woman arrested for child exploitation. Guess what they found on her hard drive? Jenna looked up. A video? Same angle? Same kind of room? Same sticker drawings on the wall? No. Yes. And get this. Same soft whisper in the background. Female voice. Melissa? Sounded like it. But when they traced the IP address, it came from a different woman. Jenna stared at the board. She wasn't working alone, she said. Raynor nodded slowly. She was teaching. She created a blueprint. Jenna turned to Ranger. You ready for another hunt, boy? He wagged his tail. That night, Jenna couldn't sleep. The line between justice and trauma blurred in her mind. She sat on her porch again, just like always, sipping tea that had gone cold hours ago. Ranger lay beside her, head resting on her foot. She whispered, We stopped one, but how many more are out there? He didn't move, but in his stillness she felt her answer. As many as it takes. The morning air was sharp and cold as Jenna zipped up her jacket and opened the front door. Ranger was already sitting at attention, tail still, ears forward, waiting. He knew. There was something different about today, because today they weren't chasing whispers or ghosts from the past. They were closing in on something real, something big. Jenna's laptop screen still glowed in her mind. Late the night before, the FBI had sent over decrypted files pulled from Melissa's burner phone. Inside one folder was a set of coordinates, time-stamped just 2 weeks before Chloe Montgomery's abduction. The location? A warehouse just outside Spokane, Washington. Far enough to be isolated, but close enough to stay hidden in plain sight. On paper, it was an old textile factory, abandoned, no activity, no utility bills for the past 10 years. But satellite imagery told a different story. There were fresh tire tracks and recent shipments flagged by Homeland Security, an unusually high number of soundproof foam panels, and custom wall insulation. Soundproofing. Jenna didn't need a crime scene to know what they were dealing with. This wasn't just a hideout. It was a holding site. She and Raynor hit the road before dawn with a federal task force in tow. 2 unmarked SUVs, 1 surveillance van, and Ranger in the back seat, breathing steadily like he was preparing for war. You really think Melissa was running all this from inside a prison cell? Raynor asked as they hit mile 72. She didn't have to, Jenna replied. She'd already taught others how. Still blows my mind how someone so cold can look so normal on the outside. That's the trick, Jenna said quietly. Monsters don't wear masks. They smile. They arrived just after 10 a.m. The warehouse was tucked off an overgrown road, camouflaged by decades of neglect. But as soon as Ranger stepped out of the vehicle, his stance changed. He sniffed the wind, ears locked in place. Then he growled. Not loud, but deep, guttural, like he was picking up something evil just beneath the surface. Raynor gave the signal. The team fanned out. 2 officers at the front, 2 at the back, 1 on the drone surveillance feed overhead. Jenna kept her eyes on Ranger. He pulled gently at the leash, nose to the ground, following a scent that hadn't faded yet. They reached a side entrance sealed with a rusted padlock. Ranger scratched at the bottom corner. Jenna raised her radio. Entry point found, west side, bring bolt cutters. The door creaked open slowly, revealing stale air and darkness. The squad swept in. At first, it looked empty. Dust. Rat droppings. Crates stacked in corners. Old factory signs hanging from broken chains. But Ranger wasn't fooled. He padded deeper, pulling Jenna through the shadows. And then he stopped, in front of what looked like a simple metal shelf. He growled once, then began pawing at the floor. Raynor crouched. Something's off here. Jenna knelt beside him and knocked on the concrete. Hollow. She yanked the shelf aside and revealed a square door, bolted shut. A trapdoor. They opened it together. A set of stairs descended into darkness. Jenna clicked on her flashlight. Let's finish this, she whispered. The basement was worse than they imagined. Soundproofed walls. A row of sleeping mats. Buckets in the corner, and 5 small backpacks lined against one wall, each one labeled with a name and age. Jenna's hands clenched. Only 3 names were crossed out, which meant 2 children were still alive. She turned to the far wall and froze. A giant bulletin board hung there, covered in photos, sticky notes, maps, and newspaper clippings. At the center was a photo of Melissa Green, circled in red, and branching from it were 5 other faces, men and women of various ages, each with dates next to their names. This wasn't just a ring. It was a network, a tree, and they'd just found the root. In the back of the room, Ranger barked twice. Officers rushed over. There, behind a false wall, were 2 small children. 1 girl, 1 boy. Both under 7. Shivering, but alive. Raynor called it in. Medics rushed down. EMTs wrapped them in blankets. Jenna dropped to her knees beside them. It's okay, she whispered. You're safe now. The boy looked up at her with wide eyes. Are you the lady with the dog? Jenna smiled, choking back tears. No, he's the one with me. The girl leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Ranger's neck. I heard him barking, she whispered. I knew he was coming. By nightfall, 3 suspects had been arrested across state lines, thanks to files found on a hard drive beneath the floorboards. Their faces matched the photos on the bulletin board. 2 more were still at large, but they wouldn't stay hidden for long. Jenna had no doubt, because now they had evidence, names, patterns, and witnesses. And thanks to Ranger, they had survivors. A week later, Jenna stood in front of a packed city hall. Raynor had talked her into accepting the community award, even though she hated speeches. She held the plaque in one hand. Ranger sat obediently at her side. I didn't do this alone, she said into the mic. The real hero doesn't carry a badge or wear a uniform. She paused and looked down at her partner. He just listens. He sees what others miss. He protects without question. And most of all, he never gives up. The room erupted in applause. Ranger barked once. The mayor laughed. Perfect timing. Later that night, Jenna returned home, exhausted, but full. She poured herself a glass of iced tea and sat on the porch, with Ranger curled up beside her. The stars blinked above. Crickets chirped in the distance. Peace. For once, it felt real. Think we finally made a dent? She asked aloud. Ranger didn't respond. He didn't have to, because deep down, Jenna knew the truth. They couldn't stop every monster, but they could stop this one, and they'd keep going. Together.
Thank you for following the journey of Jenna and Ranger. This story was inspired by the bravery of real working dogs and the quiet heroes who protect the most vulnerable among us. What would you have done if you were in Jenna's shoes? Do you think animals really have a sixth sense for danger? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more emotional and suspenseful stories, just like this one. From all of us, thank you for watching.